So Halloween is not a big deal in Argentina like it is in the States. So I decided to make some Halloween decorations because my kids love Halloween and it's October. So I'm going to show you what I did. Of course, the first thing I did was go to Pinterest and I found some things that I really liked. And I decided of those things, what were actual viable options of materials that I either had or I could get here in Buenos Aires. The first project that I decided to do were air dry clay ghosts. I'm sure you've seen them all over the internet just like I have. Mostly, I think people that are doing them are people that have access to a pottery kiln because the way their clay ghosts turn out are way better than mine. And it could be the clay that I'm using. I've never used this clay before. I just found it on the shelf in one of our local stores. And so it's not my favorite, if I'm being honest, especially of these 6 projects that I'm doing. But my kids don't care and they think they're cute anyway. So what I did for this project was I took little balls of clay, made them really tiny, and then I wrapped them in tin foil and gave them a little bit of a base. And this was my form to put the clay on top of to then make my ghosts. Once I had that all figured out, I started playing with the clay a little bit and I rolled it up into balls and then rolled it out. And funny story, I don't have a rolling pin here in Argentina. I don't even think I have a rolling pin at home in Tennessee. So what I did was I used the cardboard tube that the aluminum foil came on and used that to roll out the clay. So pro tip, if you don't have a rolling pin, just use a cardboard tube. It works just as well. Now I did have to use some water to help soften up the clay a little bit, and I did have to experiment quite a bit on trying to figure out the best amount of clay to use to get the right size that I was going for. I eventually got there. I will say it did take some time though, so don't expect to go into this project thinking it's going to take 5 minutes. It took me a solid 20 to 30 minutes once I really got going. Once I got the clay rolled out and the edges smooth, I then draped it over one of the tinfoil forms that I made and I pinched the sides to make the little folds in the ghosts. So it looks like it's like a sheet or something. You don't want the clay to be too thin when you are draping it over the mold, otherwise it will crack, but water fixes a lot. I did have to use quite a bit of water any place that I didn't like where something looked, and I was pretty happy with how it turned out. Now I could have left it just like this and it would have looked like a really sad beginning of a dumpling, so I didn't. And I got a toothpick and I made eyes and a mouth, and that was just really easy. I just made a little hole for each thing. Then I let those air dry on the forms on a piece of cardboard. I let them dry for 24 hours. Once they were done and I felt like they were in a good place, I then took out the foil molds, and actually having the clay piece in there made it easier to get the foil out because from hardening too much, and so it was really soft and easy to pull out, and then I could get the rest of the foil out. The foil kept that little clay ball. So pro tip, don't just shove that full of more foil because it will be harder to take out of the ghost when you're done. So here's what the ghost looks like done. Again, I really like what they look like when you can put them in a kiln. I bet there's a glaze I could have put on these if I could have found it or if I was home in Tennessee, but it's an easy idea and it's not expensive either. The next project that I did was a glowing ghost garland. I was really excited about this one, but I wasn't sure how it was going to go. So I took this egg carton that we have, because you can buy packs of 30 eggs here in Argentina, and I made these little molds. So I took the tin foil, put it into balls, and then put a toothpick into the ball, and then put that whole thing into the egg carton so it was standing up. I will also say that I tried putting the toothpick inside the tin foil first and then creating the ball, and that did not work as well. So I would make the ball first and then put the toothpick inside of it. I repeated this process about 15 times because I wanted to make sure that I had enough ghosts because I wasn't sure how well this was gonna go. Then it was time to actually make the ghosts. So I made a mixture of glue and water. It was about 1 part glue to 2 parts water. Mixed that together really, really well, and then started experimenting to see how much toilet paper I needed to drape without it making a mess. So 1 piece of toilet paper did not work. It was just a gloppy mess. So I took 2 pieces of toilet paper, actually like folded them on top of each other, and then dipped them in the glue mixture, and that seemed to hold up well enough that it wasn't tearing and making a giant gloppy mess. And then I draped those over the tinfoil toothpick forms. And again, I did that 15 times because I wasn't sure how many of these were actually going to make it, because you never know. And there were a few that I had to redo because they just weren't holding up very well and some of the toothpicks fell over. So once I was done with those, I let those again air dry overnight because I wanted them to be as dry as possible. I did discover later that if they are not dry, they will tear and you're just, again, gonna have a mess and it's not gonna look good. Once they were dry, I did put little eyes on each one of them. So again, they looked like ghosts and not just dried pieces of toilet paper. And then I started threading them onto my lights. I just took the end of the light strand that I had. These are just LED lights that I picked up at the store, and I poked them through each side of the ghost so that the ghost could thread through the whole strand of lights. And I threaded these as far as I wanted them to go. This is just a little garland that goes over my kid's door frame. So I just wanted the ghosts to be at the very top of the door. They didn't need to cover the entire light strand. You do want to be very, very gentle when you're doing this because, again, it's glue covered toilet paper. It's going to tear very easily and you can lose a ghost if you're not careful. This is what it looked like when it was done. I love this one. It's really cute, and both of my kids loved it. Next up are lantern eyeballs. I saw a picture of this on Pinterest. There was no tutorial on it, so I decided to figure out how to do it on my own. So I went to one of our local stores, picked up 2 different sizes of lanterns, and then put them together. You have to put the wire piece inside of the lantern to make it in the shape of a lantern. Doing this, I noticed that the top hole is larger than the bottom hole, so I decided to use the bottom hole for the pupil of the eye because it was easier to do it that way. So I cut out black squares that I was then going to put in the bottom of each lantern to be the pupil. So I just put it in from the top of the lantern and moved the wire frame around a little bit to make sure that the paper was secure and that you didn't see any gaps. And there you can see a little of the black around the lantern, but it's not super obvious and it gets covered up in the next step. So after I got the pupils in, I then took a black marker and drew a circle around where I wanted the iris to be. Pro tip: when you're doing this, one, it's not necessary, but if you do it, the lines on one of these lanterns spiral. And so you're gonna have to be creative in connecting your circle because the lines are not the way to do it. I decided that I was gonna use markers to color in the irises of the eyes, and my daughter was gonna help me, and she thought it was so fun, but we discovered that the markers, either the markers we had weren't good enough or it just isn't the right fit because the markers were just not cutting it. As you can see in this iris here, the green just was not covering enough of the lantern and it wasn't vibrant enough. So I pulled the paint out and I decided to paint it instead. And honestly, that was the best move. I should have done that in the first place. I was hoping for a fully mess-free project on this one, but a little bit of paint was not a big deal, and it was really, really fast to do it like this. Now, if you want to be more creative and more detailed, you of course can make your irises look more like actual eyes and do multiple colors and do a hazel one if you want. I just decided to do the easy way and I did green, brown, and blue. Honestly, I was really surprised at how these turned out and I kind of love them. So has everyone else that's coming to our apartment, and my husband has actually said that they're incredibly scary. I did use masking tape to hang them on the wall, so that was really, really easy. We may be adding more throughout the rest of October because they were really fun and really easy to make. Next up are juice carton haunted houses. So this is juice that we drink daily at my house. So just kept these cartons and then started painting them black. This is paint that I already had on hand from a previous project that we did. So honestly, for this one specifically, I didn't have to buy anything because I had everything on hand. I painted 3 sides of each juice carton, let it all dry, and then painted the 4th side. You can see here that I was clearly doing this while the baby was awake, and I had a little helper there for a minute. Once I got him cleaned up, I then touched up the paint on the juice cartons and finished my painting. I only did 1 coat of paint for these because 1, it's not that big of a deal, and 2, this paint is very thick. I then let the paint dry overnight and came back to it the next day to do the details. So a lot of the inspo that I saw for this on Pinterest, people used white paint. I didn't have white paint, and again, I wasn't going to buy more paint for this. So I just used what I had on hand, and I decided to go with a pastel color scheme because that's what I like for Halloween anyway. And so I did a different design on each house. I only ended up doing 2 houses because the 3rd one I gave to my daughter to paint, and she decided that it was going to be a lantern instead of a haunted house. So it looks nothing like what I did. I would not suggest buying this paint if you live in Argentina for one of these projects because it is really hard to work with and definitely difficult to make look the way you want it to. Anyway, I added more details aside from a door and windows. I added a spider web to this one and some shingles to the roof. I did end up adding a spider and some vines along it later. The other house I did had arched windows and an arched door and vines all over it, and I added a cat to the side of that one too, which I was actually really into and I wish I'd done more of. These are also really cute, and I will probably be doing more of these throughout the month of October as we drink more juice. Next up are paper garlands that are Halloween themed. So I just got some colored paper from a local store, and on Pinterest I found a specific tutorial on this that had templates to use that you can just print out and use when you're cutting these out, which was really nice. I have a link to that original creator's article and the templates on my site. So this original creator had 5 templates, and one of them was a spider, which had a lot of detail to it. I just didn't feel like doing that, mostly because I have these little kitty scissors that I use because I haven't found really good scissors here, even adult size scissors. So it was already hard enough to cut these as it is, and then you really don't want to cut more than 4 of these at a time because it's just too hard. So in order to make long enough garlands, I cut like 3 or 4 of each design and then taped those together with clear tape. So there's the pumpkin design, the cat design, the bat, and the ghost. And like I said, I didn't do the spider, so I did those 4. I did the cat and the bat with black paper, the pumpkin with orange, and the ghost with pink because my white paper that I have is just printer paper and that's way too flimsy. Of all of them, I feel like the bat was the most intricate of the ones that I did, and so it made me really happy that I did not do the spider because I was just not into doing that. You can see here with the ghosts how I just taped sections together with clear packing tape so that they would be longer strands. I also added eyes to the ghosts to make them look like ghosts because otherwise I feel like that's not what they look like. This is another one that I'll probably be making more of because we're hosting a Halloween party for some friends on Halloween, and I want to have more decorations like this because they're really cute and they are easy to decorate with. Okay, last project. This one probably ended up being my absolute favorite one, to be honest, and that would be the popsicle stick haunted houses. So I started off with just plain popsicle sticks and glued them together. I decided to do that first before painting so that I could wipe off the glue and I wouldn't be wiping off paint because, again, the paint I have isn't great. So I glued 12 popsicle sticks together for the base of the house. Once they were glued, I wiped the glue off and then I painted them. I also painted 2 extra sticks for the roofs. So that's 14 in total in each color, and I went with pastel pink, blue, and purple for my colors. I wasn't originally planning on doing this, and this is not a necessity, but I did paint both sides of the popsicle sticks. I only did this because I didn't like how one side of them looked with the pink and just decided to do all of them on the other side. After everything was painted, I then glued the 2 popsicle sticks to the base and then to each other to make the roofs. So everything I saw on Pinterest for these for inspo had like a cute fabric or paper on the back of the roofs. Well, I didn't have cute fabric or paper, so I just used some black paper. I still like how it turned out though. So I glued that black paper to the back of the roofs, and then I cut out some shapes for each house. I did a door, a ghost, a bat, and I just decided to roll with it. So, and then I added a cat for one of them. I was going to make more than one cat, but my daughter hijacked the cat before I had time to make another one. Each house got each of those. And funny story, earlier in the day, my son had been playing with something and he pulled my daughter's set of beads out of a drawer. And I remembered that we had these cute star beads and I thought it'd be really cute on the houses. So I pulled those out because they were also pastel. They were pinks and purples. So we added those to the houses as well. My daughter really liked that. And I'm just using a glue I found in a local store. I did do beads all along the pitch of the blue roof and I really like how that turned out. I then used masking tape to hang them on the wall just outside of my kids' room so that they have a little bit more decoration there along with the glowing lights. And that is it. This was really fun to do, especially since Halloween is not a big deal here in Argentina. So it was just a fun way to decorate our apartment while we are here because our family loves Halloween so much. All the details, inspiration, links, and supply lists are on my site, breezingthrough.com.